Hi, everyone. Welcome to a science fiction focused, comics focused podcast. This is Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode. You can't see the video, but you're talking or listening to people with different glasses, four different styles of glasses currently in the Zoom space.
I
And I'm
didn't think about
assuming,
that.
assuming we all like comics as well. So delighted to be talking with Ben Wright-Heuman, Rainer Kannenstine, and Kelci Crawford.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
I did
happy
Hey,
to be
not
here.
pleasure.
realize that we had
Very-
like four different styles of glasses until you said something.
That is very funny.
You know, it works. It works. It totally works. What's always fun too is when someone comes in and they have the same style. So
Yeah.
we should all just sort of bandwagon at some point.
Well, it would just show that we have good taste.
That's right. Exactly. Well, we all love science fiction, I'm assuming, and comics and anthologies. So that already is a bonding experience. It's a bonding moment. And the book that we're talking about is The Universal Flaws of Robotics, which has all the Asimov throwbacks in the title. I love that. Would one of you like to start off and tell us a little bit about who you are and the origin story of the project?
Sure. I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. I'm Ben Wright-Heuman, and this is the third anthology that our group has put together. Basically, I've known Rainer for a long time. We went to the Center for Cartoon Studies together, and I've actually been in a Dungeons and Dragons group for a very long time. And when lockdown happened in 2020, Rainer and I had basically the same business model idea at the same time, to start putting together an organization that would help with comic production, stuff like that. And we decided, okay, well, let's start off by doing anthologies. So we got a bunch of creators together, and basically said, okay, you have 12 pages, black and white, pick a cryptid. And that ended up becoming Less Than Secret, which was an amazing project. It was wildly successful. Like we absolutely love what came out of that.
Yeah,
And we're like,
that was our cryptid anthology. That was our first one.
Nice.
and from there it was just like, well, we got to keep making these, right? And this is the third one. The second one was What the Gnomes Know, which Rainer was the one who ran that one. Also great project, and just kept getting bigger and bigger. And we basically would just talk as a group with the other people who contributed. And it was like, what'd be a fun topic? Like, we want something a little bit broad so people can put their own flavor on it. And the next big idea that got everyone excited was robots. So we decided that's what we're going to do.
Very timely with AI and all of those sort of questions and processes as well.
And one just very important thing in there too, because we talked about that as a group, that we didn't want to be butting up against generative AI and things like that. So we are going, when we cover AI, it's more in the science fiction sense of it. And we also had a rule: none of the art in this is AI generated.
Awesome.
This is all done by people.
Awesome. Yes. Love that. So going around the Zoom space, how did each of you connect with comics and storytelling, and how did you connect with each other, actually?
I'll go first. Ben and I went to the same school, which is how we met. And I've been in comics forever. I remember in high school having the realization that I thought that anyone who did any other medium wanted to be doing comics. Like, I assumed every illustrator just was a cartoonist who couldn't draw. I assumed every novelist wanted to be making comics, but couldn't write, and then every novelist wanted to make comics but couldn't draw. Like, I assumed anyone who did any other media did it because they couldn't do comics. In my entire life, I was like, I'm going to be a novelist, an illustrator, or anything, because I was like, well, it's not going to be comics, because comics is what you do for everyone wants to be doing comics. Until I was like, oh no, actually, that's not the case. I just really want to do them. Yeah, and ever since I've just been going at them. And yeah.
Love it.
What's funny to me about that is you almost want to refute it, except I was a guy who was looking at going into film when I really wanted to be doing comics. Like, film somehow was the fallback.
Yeah, I mean, that was honestly what I thought back then when I was a teenager, and I was like, oh wait, no, this is a thing only certain people specialize in. And I was like, yeah, I just didn't see a different path.
And it's funny because I got into it because my older sister was like, I'm going to be a novelist. And I was the younger sibling that was like, well, I'm going to do the thing that my older sibling wants to do. And then I started writing and I was like, but I want to draw pictures. So then I started drawing pictures with words attached. And after doing it enough times and reading enough comics, like obviously Sunday funnies, sure, but also getting into like manga when manga was like beginning to burgeon in popularity was when I was in high school. So like I was that kid at the Walden Books being like, I'm going to spend what teeny tiny paycheck I have to buy manga. That was me. That was my high school experience. Um, I wanted to draw comics because I had stories, but like just being limited to novels was not good enough for me. So I had to draw them at the same time as write them.
Nice, nice. I am a high school English teacher, so I'm always on the lookout for the kids that are into manga and comics and different things like that. So absolutely, always encouraging that. But I actually have a math question, strangely enough, and that is how many people are part of this project? That wasn't on the official list, but I'm assuming that's an easy enough math question to answer.
Yeah. Total on this particular project, we have 24 people involved with it.
Nice.
Far and away the biggest group we've ever worked with. And that translates to 19 stories. For comparison, our previous biggest work was What the Gnomes Know, which was 9 stories. So
wow.
This is almost twice as many comics pages. It's a huge project.
Love it, love it. I love the anthology sort of like short story approach. Big fan of Ray Bradbury and science fiction in that way as well. So I'm curious about what the anthology approach allowed you to do, or has allowed you to do since it's the third project.
You know, one of the things that I found very fascinating with doing this is that, of course, the biggest upside is just being able to work with a ton of cool creators, get to see everyone's thing. But the thing that really sticks out to me about this is the curation and the order of them. Because by having these comics together, you can make a statement of the overall point through everyone else's point. Like how one comic transitions into the next, how you have so many views on a topic, it lets you explore things more than any one creator normally would.
So is that why you put my short story last in Universal Flaws of Robotics?
Honestly, Kelci, that was a big part of why we did that. Is you end on a strong note, and your story was very solid for where we wanted it to end.
Aw, thank you.
I wanted yours as either the first or the last.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually went into this and I made this pretty explicit when we were talking about it as a group. I was like, I want my short story to make people cry.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. I'm absolutely a creator who likes to do that kind of stuff. I've created I've mentioned Dungeons and Dragons already. I've made D&D characters, and my entire goal is like, I'm going to make the party cry. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, but like in a good way.
In a good way. But speaking of ending and beginning stories, like it's true. We did spend a lot of time talking about what order we're going to put stuff in. We balance it based on art. We balance it based on topic. We had a few where it's like, well, these two are kind of covering similar story beats, so let's have them farther apart. And we're also trying to put strong stories in specific places. The story we're starting with is going to be called Interview with an Android by a creator who's new to the group, Jackie Kuhn. And yeah, Rainer and I basically, when we were going over it, we're like, so this is the first story, right? Like it was just the perfect way to start an anthology.
Did just an interview with a robot, and reading that short, I was like, ooh, this hits just the right emotional notes.
Yeah.
This is a good way to start an anthology about robots and transhumanism and all of those discussions.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'm going to do an editorial echo and just say, as somebody that's done like academic books, you definitely put the strong things throughout, but definitely at the beginning and the end. If I'm contributing something, it usually goes to the middle. I'm like, don't look at me, look at these other
Yeah.
people.
And I also, of course, as a boss, need to be very clear. We're not saying necessarily that these are the like only good stories or anything like that. We love everybody's story in this
Yes.
anthology. We're just saying that these were the two that were like, this is the strong start, this is the strong finish.
Yeah,
yes.
like a piece of music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at comics anthology projects is how would you compose music and not like not like modern day albums, but I'm thinking about like old classical pieces. Yeah, very much like that.
Yeah.
This is also how I think about putting together playlists, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like these are all the
That's
things I need, I want. What order do I put them in?
What are the
Mhm.
emotional notes and where do they go?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the other fun things with this anthology, and this happens every time we do one of these, because we're just saying we bring in a bunch of different creators, we're just giving them a very vague topic. We always assume it might go in certain directions. Like we did cryptid anthology. I thought we were going to get a bunch of horror stories,
Mhm.
and we almost never get a majority of the genre we think we're going to get. And like the thing that surprised me in this one is we have two that are romances,
Love it. Yeah.
which I just never would have occurred to me with robots. And I'm like, oh, two romance stories, and they're good.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It really, yeah, I would not have gone that route either. I mean, personally, I was, with the AI topic, I was like, fear, fear, fear. I need to do horror immediately. And it was really fascinating seeing that was not everyone's reaction. And it really is just so cool. Like everyone's perspective comes together in such a unique way.
Yeah. And I also have to throw out there, because I've said it to you multiple times, Rainer did a transhumanist horror story for his, and it's my favorite horror comic he's done.
Thank you.
Nice.
It's funny that you mentioned these because for part of my homework to get ready for this anthology to make my short story, I actually watched an anime called Robot Carnival that's a compilation of short films about robots.
Mhm.
And two of those short films were romances.
Yeah.
I'm jotting that down. I'm checking that out.
It's very good. I highly recommend.
Yeah, I also need to call out. I thought it was funny when you started off talking about loving sci-fi and things like that, because Kelci did fantasy instead.
Yep. I am a fantasist at heart. Like, even if you say, oh, you got to do something about robots, I'm going to be like, yeah, but it's a robot powered by magic and it's never going to be explained.
Love it.
Because I like playing with that mystery, but it also kind of ties in with like, but do people really understand how computers work? Do they?
It's magic to me. It is
Yeah.
magic to me.
Even people who make their living like doing stuff over the internet are like, I don't know how the internet works.
I press this button, it happens. I don't know. Omelets. It's amazing.
Not to downgrade the technical wizardry that does go into making the modern day internet and making modern day robots and everything, but I just like playing with that idea of we don't really know how this works.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it is acting on its own, and right now it's benevolent. I'm just like playing with that idea.
Now that gets to a second part of that question, which is science fiction and fantasy, and what that allows you to do as storytellers.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Ben and Rainer, if you want to go first, I'm going to need a second to percolate on that.
I think as a creator, what I want out of my work is the emphasis of human reality. When I do fantasy, it's not a comment on the past. And when I do sci-fi, it's not a comment on the future. What I'm trying to do is communicate what it is like to be human emphasized even further. To be like, this feels like this in this current situation. Let me emphasize this situation to the extreme. For example, my story was actually about social media and shittification as an abusive relationship. Was the concept behind it. And, just showing social media would not do that. So I was like, okay, what's a step above this? It's a smart home that you move into, it gets you ready, and then suddenly things start looking bad, but you've lost all of your connection. And in a realistic fiction story, it would have had to work a lot harder to get the same emotions across, because you don't have the immediate sci-fi element which overemphasizes the already existing emotion.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of similar for me. Whenever I go into sci-fi, I'm very often going after specific concepts that struck me that I want to find new ways to play with. Like my story is called Terminal Zero, and it was honestly based around a problem that's happening in the video game industry right now, and actually in a lot of media industries, where increasingly we're moving to fully digital versions of things where we don't need to buy a disc in order to play, get a movie or anything like that. And people are beginning to realize that there's archival problems with that. In that if a streaming service decides we're not going to cover this game anymore, it could cease to exist because nobody has a hard copy of it. And that was sort of the concept that inspired my story. I basically talked about a world where humans have gone fully mechanical. There's no more biological humans left. Over time, they just started transferring into robot bodies, and now that's all that remains. And now there's a movement to scrap the body altogether and go fully AI, fully digital. And it talks about the consequences of doing that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That idea of, oh yes, we can totally trust corporations to be in charge of all of these digital media, and there's no way that they would like delete them because of corporate greed or anything.
And like even outside of malevolence, accidents happen. Like you could potentially be getting into a Library of Alexandria situation with a lot of this stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good parallel.
Yeah, so in my story, I don't explore any of that. So with this particular short, because I have different goals in mind when it comes to the different stories that I tell. The fascinating thing that connects all of them is wanting to understand the other and wanting to have empathy with the other. And with my particular short story, we're talking about a gardener robot who's been commissioned to be a gardener / guard for a very wealthy estate. And she's at first commissioned on with the idea of, oh, she's a robot. She's a being made of metal. But she starts displaying the ability to like make flowers grow out of her hand with magic, and it's never explained. And on the one hand, there could be people who would want to seek an explanation for that, but realistically, Roberta befriends the daughter of the estate owner, and the daughter's like, you don't have to explain it. I think it's wonderful. I think that this spark within you is delightful, and the both of them have such empathy for each other, and they take care of each other through, because this story takes place over a span of a very long time. The robot basically sees this little girl from like little girlhood to old womanhood to her death. And seeing that line of like empathy for like the robot learns to appreciate life as fleeting as it is, and the girl that the robot watches over, that Roberta watches over, the girl is like, but this robot has a spark of life within her that I've not seen in any other robot. And it's that empathy that I find fascinating. And the short story is kind of like a miniature case study of that, but it is a theme that I like to explore in my other comics works.
Love that theme of empathy and connecting and going back to the anthology idea again. I'm just reminded of like Dark Horse Presents, and I love a good anthology, but there's something really unique and special about a comics anthology that's kind of like walking through a gallery at the same time as getting a story. So really appreciating that approach as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing doing anthology work like this. First off, like before we organized an anthology, we all contributed to anthologies at one time or another. And one of the things that was always fun about it is it can be so useful for creators to be given prompts and restrictions, because pushing against those really is where a lot of cool ideas that you wouldn't have come up with before end up coming together. And the other big thing as an organizer for anthologies, it is amazing seeing how it's so cool getting one of these books together. And there's so much work in it that you didn't necessarily do directly, but you did as part of a team. And it's incredibly rewarding. Like I've done 2 graphic novels on my own. I like drew the whole things, kickstarted them. Each one took me a couple years to finish. And it was a massive undertaking. And we put out one of these anthologies, and it's roughly about a year of work. And every time I do, I'm like, this is one of the best things I've ever worked on. And it's incredible working as a team, because a lot of indie cartoonists in particular, we tend to not collaborate. We got into indie comics because we wanted to do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah. And this has really made me appreciate a lot more, like, collaboration's a good thing. Working together as a team is a good thing. It can be a pain sometimes, but I mean, in general, you end up with an amazing product you might not have had otherwise.
Yeah. Well, if I'm a reader out there, if I'm a listener, are there other particular elements that you would want me to know about the book? Will I laugh? Will I cry?
Yes.
Honestly, I definitely I'd expect you to do both. We really do have a big variety in here. We have work from both new creators on the scene and veterans. We've got Colleen Frakes is one of the other big indie names who did a story about a librarian who starts working with a librarian robot and is none too pleased about it.
That was one of my favorites.
That one is adorable. I love that one. But yeah, we have several that are fresh students at I think a couple of them are current students at the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Yes.
Yeah, like we have very new names coming in there. I know Chris Dance's story, Ashes to Ashes, is a darker one that's about global warming. Let's see. We have Angela Boyle, who's been from Center for Cartoon Studies, has been part of these for a long time, and is doing hybrid comics, which are really cool, where it's a mix of comic panels and sections of prose, and does it really effectively. And like, there's a mix of like all kinds of it's a little bit of everything.
I think your comparison of a gallery is really a fascinating comparison, because I often, whenever I go to a museum, I notice the difference between how I perceive art in a gallery versus anywhere else. Like in a gallery, I'll spend on average like 10 to 15 minutes looking at a painting, versus like on Tumblr or Twitter, I'm going to look for about 13 seconds. Like you're just like, oh, that's pretty, and you move on. And I guess what I would say to people approaching this project or any project similarly is take it like that, where these comics, maybe if you had seen a short thing like this separately, you might just like think, okay, I like this. I would really take the time and be like, why is this here? what is this person doing? How do I feel about how this makes me feel opposed to the last one?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I find when I do that with anthologies, it really ups my level of enjoyment, I guess.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
comics are great for the lingering read and reread.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I have one more official question. Have we missed anything from anyone that you want to make sure to share? Any compliments for anyone around the Zoom room or anything like that before we get there?
No, they're terrible. These people are, I don't like, they're
I don't know
awful.
why I put up with y'all.
Just go ahead and get it out there. Just get it out there. We can edit this later.
I will
This is
say-
now our therapy
yeah.
session.
That's right.
Yeah, I will say I am incredibly grateful to these people for putting up with me because we are currently in the middle of the Kickstarter. And anytime you're in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign, the person running it gets a little crazy. So I appreciate you guys for supporting and helping me.
This has been an absolutely incredible team to work with. I mean, just the people here have been instrumental in every single aspect, connecting them, working together. This team has worked beautifully together, and I am so grateful to have been a part of it. It is really awesome.
I've been a part of a lot of anthology projects. I gotta say, anytime that I work with Cannonwright Productions, I know it's going to be a fun time. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, in that case, the final question is, if I'm a listener out there and I want to find out more, support, follow your work, where would be some spaces where I might do that?
Well, place number one, you can check out Universal Flaws of Robotics, the anthology that we've been talking about, at tinyurl.com/UFR comic, and check us out on Kickstarter. As for everybody else, I will let everybody else do their shameless plugs before I do mine.
I will say that's the number one thing. Please check that out. It is incredibly awesome. You can find Kannenwright specific stuff at kannonwrite.com. That's spelled CANONWRITE because we are writers of canon. You can also find my personal works over at bwhcomics.com, and I'm also at bwhcomics on Patreon, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube.
Currently, the best place to find my work would be at rfkannen dash art on Tumblr. The rfkannen.com is also currently being put into functioning.
And everything that I do, from webcomics to YouTube videos and everything else, can be found at kelcicrawford.com. That's Kelci spelled KELCI Crawford.com.
All right. Well, many, many thanks around the Zoom room. It's been a wonderful conversation and glad to have you back anytime, corporately, individually, or in whatever rendition you would like to return in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks all.
Yes. Thank you.